Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Fresh Talk 2.0, Episode 2. And Dan, correct me if I am wrong. If I turn to my left, I will see a camera.
Yes. Well, I mean, you did last week too. That's nothing new.
There it is.
Oh,
look at this. Look how technological. And what's interesting about that camera is I'm a little faster than it. So if I turn my head real quick, I beat it before I get there.
Faster than the speed of camera.
Yeah, exactly. That's wild. That's a great effect. I'm basically going to spend the next 40 minutes just doing that to see if the camera ever beats me to the punch.
Like, what would you do if it did?
I don't know. It's kind of freaky.
You freak out.
And now what do we do? Because we've never recorded this live, so I don't know whether to speak to you and pretend that that's not there, or is it going to be one of those Ricky Bobby things where it's like, Dan,
I'm not sure what to do with
looking
my
at
hands.
the camera. I don't know what to do with my hands.
That's going to be up to you, brother.
Okay. Well, hey, technology at its finest. This may work. We're not sure because literally
Whoops.
What? Oh my God.
Mute.
Things are happening.
Mute your laptop.
Okay. Was that live on my computer? So we're a few seconds ahead of time.
But when will then be now?
So we're delayed.
We are in Spaceballs.
So if we say something incredibly inappropriate, we can unplug this and will it cut the feed?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Like, well, the feed will beat us to the punch.
It'll still happen, yeah.
Okay.
We have no dump button.
Oh, wow. Well, this is just wild. Now I'm in this weird matrix because I'm thinking, wait, are the people hearing what I already said, but they haven't heard it yet?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. My brain's going to blow up.
I'm telling you, man. We're in space. Just watch Spaceballs again.
Cool. Okay. So, Fresh Talk, we discussed last week was our return. We discussed the changes to the podcast. We discussed our new location. We are not at Archive Studios anymore. We're in your parents' basement garage.
Or if you're English, the Barrage.
The Barrage. We're here in the Barrage.
You're welcome, Rory.
If you want to know some of the changes that happened to Fresh Talk, listen to last week's episode.
Yep.
But this particular episode, we promised you we're going to try technology where you are able to see us
live.
And that's what's happening right now. Our goal is to let people know far in advance when that's occurring, even if it's a couple hours. But tonight, since it's our first run,
I'm not really upset if no one tunes in because we don't really know how this is going to go.
I don't feel bad if anybody misses it because literally you would have to be on Twitter at that exact second to know that even occurred.
Correct.
So we're probably going to be alone for this one, but the technology we're testing out.
This is more of a test.
This is more of a test. The idea, though, is if you are listening to this and in future episodes, if you do catch the tweet or the Facebook or the post when we know we're doing it and we let you know ahead of time, hey, in 2 hours we're recording this, you can hop on, you can watch the podcast being recorded before it's even released to the public, the general public.
Because you'll be watching live.
Yes, and you'll be able to participate because you'll be able to essentially send us tweets.
Yes.
And ask any questions or be part of it.
So I was a little bit wrong. You don't need a Google Plus account if you want to watch it.
If you want to watch it.
You can watch it on YouTube. If you want to contribute and ask questions in the Q&A, you do need a Google Plus account. Or just hit us up on Twitter if you happen to be watching on YouTube, which no one is, which is fine.
Yeah.
Just send us a tweet.
How do we know we have no viewers?
Well, there's two, but it's you and I.
Me. You shouldn't have told me that. We got two, Great. Well, this is right out of an episode of Mr. Robot. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And Dan, last week, your picks.
Yeah.
Well, really quick, let's wrap this up before we get to the picks. So that's what's happening right now. This is a test, but we are live. You're able to watch us while we're recording it. Podcast will still broadcast, but if you are lucky enough to know when we are recording it, we'll give you a heads up. You can chime in. It'll be interesting to see the first person. Who is the first person? I just got a tweet. And
you did?
It's a DM, and it has nothing to do with the podcast.
Oh, son of!
And it's not even a chick. It's Josh. It's our buddy Josh Burnell, who's a great screenwriter in Los Angeles.
Tell him to join the conversation. Watch us live on YouTube.
Dear Josh, if you have nothing
Dear
going
Josh.
on. Cool. We'll plug for Josh Burnell. If you ever see any of his work on TV, check him out. He's a great writer, smart guy. What taste in music that guy has.
Oh,
my God. We should have him on the cast sometime.
All right.
And we're still working on getting our Skype going to get the interviews set up. But every week we're getting a little further. Week 2, we now have it being filmed.
Yes, we do, dear listener.
Yes. Now, with this filming, really quick, Dan, I should probably ask you ahead of time, but will this exist online where anybody can watch it before the podcast is released? Maybe. Or is it just live and then it goes away? Know what I mean?
Well, it goes live.
Could somebody watch it tomorrow live?
Yeah. Well, not live, but on YouTube. I mean, I could probably take it down, but that kind of ruins it. If you want to watch it on YouTube and not have the themes and
because so one of the differences, any music that we play is not heard on this particular one.
Not yet. It's still working the kinks out. This is again more of a trial.
This is raw. This is Fresh Talk in the raw.
if you want to put it that way. Sure.
Fair enough. Well, Dan, well, let's get to some segments really quick. We talked about the new segments that we introduced, picks of the week, because Kai is not with us, so therefore we don't have records of the week.
Nope.
But we do have picks of the week. Last week, our inaugural pick of the weeks were you with the TV show.
Yep. Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot. I keep thinking Bad Robot because of the J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, that's his company.
Yeah, great company. But Mr. Robot, and my pick was a TV show called Longmire. We both did TV shows. Mr. Robot, technological show. Longmire, an anti-technological show.
The opposite. Yeah.
But we both did those TV shows. This week, I'm gonna take the floor first, and I think I'm going to impress you because I'm gonna talk podcasts.
All right.
I am not a podcast guy.
No, you're not.
You were the first person to even tell me what a podcast was several years ago.
Right.
For the record, you were the first guy to actually tell me what an iPod was. For the record.
Oh, we have a third viewer.
All right.
Thank you.
And then we also had you were the first person to tell me what an MP3 was.
Yeah, I was also the first person you ever made fun of for buying an iPod.
Yeah, that's true. You gave me my Yahoo email account, which
correct.
I still use. Dan set up my Yahoo email account, jefedemanos@yahoo.com.
Now everyone knows it.
I didn't even get to come up with my own name for my own email account. I was just most people got screwed by AOL forever. I got screwed by you.
Tell them what I say your password as.
Totally. That show. What I wanted to say is you picked this show, Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot. Yeah.
And I don't think it had anything to do with our podcast because nobody had even known that we recorded a new one. But I got to tell you, I saw everywhere online.
Yeah.
Literally, I guess there was some epic episode or season ender or something.
Hasn't ended yet. It's still, I think there's 1 or 2 episodes left, but there were a couple that were like, holy shit.
Okay. But people were freaking. I mean, they were like, this show just really turned the corner. I've seen like it's the best new show of the season. I mean,
I've seen it's like the show of the summer type thing.
People that I follow on Twitter are like, hey, man, if you haven't seen this, you need to see it. And I'm like, lo and behold, if it ever comes down to technology, Dan is hip to it before anybody. Granted, I think
even if it's a TV show.
You got to jump on the show 48 hours before the rest of the world, but there must have been some epic swerve on the show or something that people were like really freaking out about. So I'm ready. I'm going to give it a shot.
Yeah, you should. It's
fun. I'm going to jump in and check out Mr. Robot, which was your pick last week. So what I was saying is in terms of technology and podcasts, I'm picking a podcast. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, truth be told. I just don't. I literally listen to a boxing podcast religiously every week that I love called The Next Round with 2 boxing writers, Steve Kim.
It's going to be called like Gloves Off or something.
Yeah, close. The Next Round. Steve Kim and Gabe Montoya. That's kind of my, I love that sport. I follow that podcast. I listen to ours. Honestly, as embarrassing this is, that's about the extent of it. So a lot of times when you and Kai would talk about, segments on podcasts and how they're run, I was kind of like, I don't even know.
What are you
like?
I'm
the only person on earth that doesn't listen to Mark Maron, apparently. Yes. But with that said, I stumbled upon, and this is one of these weird, what's great about the internet is that you accidentally find stuff. And I literally accidentally saw somebody tweet something about a tweet where they retweet. I didn't even know how I came upon it, but I saw something on Twitter about a podcast, and the name of the podcast, and of course I have to look it up so I get it correct, is Thinking Sideways. And check this out.
Not heard
Thinking
of this one.
Sideways. I don't think it's a big one by any stretch of the imagination, but it deals with, and again, this is totally away from what some of the stuff you're into, but it deals with myths and true crime and mysteries and unsolved cases. And
sounds awesome.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of everything. And I'm gonna give you an example of some of the subjects, but it's a lot of like but they give you a history on it. So it's not like you have to go into whatever the case is and know about
they
it.
brief you.
They give you a good briefing. Then they come up with their theories on it. And there's one guy that's sort of the, the cynic in the bunch, and then there's the guy that believes it. But it just seems like 3 friends doing it. But these people do like a podcast a week. Let me tell you, they do research. Like it's one of these things, like it's not like
it takes time.
Yeah, it takes hard. To do. So they'll cover stuff like I'll give you some episodes here. Famous unknown cases like what do we got here? The death of Huey Long, who was a politician who was murdered under strange circumstances.
Huey Long is still alive.
Yeah.
Dude.
What's the frequency, Kenneth, the guy that beat up that newscaster years ago and started screaming, "What's the frequency, Kenneth?" REM wrote a song about it. These are bad examples. The Vatican murders, these crazy murders that happened at the Vatican a couple years ago. The Tupac and Biggie case, who killed Kurt Cobain. The Tylenol murders. There's people that were killed by Tylenol in the 80s. They never found. So it's a lot of crime cases. The mysterious death of Edgar Allan Poe, the famous Max Headroom broadcast single. Do you ever hear about that?
No.
Well, I'll tell you about that sometime.
All right.
You know, the Church of Scientology, Mothman. And then you get crazy ones like The Truth About Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Skyquakes, Who Settled the New World First, Jack the Ripper, a subject that I love, JFK assassination. So basically, it's conspiracies, true crime, unsolved things, and I love all that. You know, I'm a sucker for that stuff. Like I go deep,
that's
Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster. But some of these crimes, and some of these cases are things that I wasn't familiar with, and that's what's exciting because it's not like, oh, I know all about Jack the Ripper. You're not telling me anything new. This podcast is actually covering this crazy story on this couple that was whole family that was murdered in San Francisco, and they believe it has links to the Jonestown massacre. You know, with Jim Jones and drinking the Kool-Aid. These people escaped it and were living there, but
literally where the phrase "drinking the Kool-Aid" came from.
Literally, isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
how much does Kool-Aid hate that? So it's just a great podcast. So I have found, I'm happy to say, basically my second, third podcast that I am now, you know, really committed to. But I mean, podcasts are a wormhole because if you find a good one and then you find a good one, next thing you know, you're not listening to any music anymore. And all you're doing is sitting around listening to podcasts. And
welcome to my life, J-Man.
They're endless. They're endless.
I mean, that's the beauty of it, man.
It's a wormhole. It's so endless that I do a podcast with you and I barely even listen to podcasts, but they're everywhere. So that's my thing. Thinking Sideways. It's a podcast. You can get it on all the podcatchers. If you make that show and somehow you hear about our show and what we do in our band, I really enjoy your podcast. I enjoy it a lot. They don't take calls or anything like that. They just do them, but I've learned a lot on it and it's right up my alley. So it's cool to find a little conspiracy podcast. They go here, I think kind of standard. There's some big ones. There's a 1 hour and a half one, a 60-minute one, a 32-minute one, a 60-minute, a 1 hour, 1-3. They kind of come in around.
They run the gamut.
But our podcasts, are they all over the board?
Kind of. It depends on the show. It depends on the format. It depends on what they want to do. I mean, on the podcast network that I listen to, they started out about half an hour. There's a show, their headline show is like 2 hours. Most of them are 1 hour. It's really kind of up to the host and how they want to do it, but it's all over the place. It sounds like we got another you got another DM maybe. How's Josh Burnell doing?
I'll just read his tweet. My friend Josh sent me a direct message saying, "Hollywood is good for me. What part are you headed to?" There you go. So hope he doesn't send any nudes or anything like that. Get awkward, you know.
I have that awkward boner. It'd be weird.
I'll find out and call you.
That's good. I'm glad you branched out into more podcasts.
Yeah, I branched out. So now I understand how DMs work on Twitter, and now I've listened to one more podcast. So hey, it's a brave new world. I'm a day away from Mr. Robot. You know,
we'll get you running Linux in no time.
Yeah,
which you're closer than you think running that Mac OS. I'll tell you that much.
Thank you very much. So Dan, how about you? What do you got for picks of the week? I'm throwing a podcast out, Thinking Sideways. What do you have?
I'm throwing. It's probably going to be the first of like a 3-part series of tips. They're not necessarily.
I don't know if this falls in the segment guidelines.
It does, J-Man, because it's whatever the fuck we want.
Wait, let me try and catch myself in front of the camera real fast so it could be myself.
I'm gonna wait for that replay on the live.
It's so cool because you're there before it happens. You know what it looks like? It looks like I know no one's watching this, but if you were watching this, it looks like when Rambo hears a noise in the forest and Stallone does that, and it happens like a second later. All right, great. Okay, so tell us about these tips now that you've decided Dan's weekly tips.
So in the vein of Mr. Robot being a security expert, what I do every day in IT relates
Which is Dan's day job.
It's my day job. I do it all day, every day. And then when I'm not at work, I also do it every day because every time I bump into anybody, they're like, "Oh, hey, by the way, could you look at my printer? Like my phone is having this." It's a full-time job, even when I'm not at work.
It is one of those jobs.
It is.
You have a skill, but it relates to something that everybody needs help with because everybody's got some type of tech in their life now. And 20 years ago, it wasn't like that. So now every grandmother, aunt, uncle, holidays, Christmas. I mean, it must be crazy.
Every family gathering. And I feel bad for a little bit bad for my cousin who married in a few years ago because he's a doctor. So now he's getting it from that angle. I'm like, man, Sonny, you're going to be busy all day at these events. So I get all the computer questions. He gets all the health questions.
I bet they merge sometimes. So I was on WebMD and I can't get the damn thing to load to find out what's wrong with my back.
Cookies. I don't know, but just my back hurts. So I didn't even have any cookies.
So I took this huge shit and my cookies are clear, right? What's going on here?
Didn't eat for a day and then I took a shit. My cookies are clear. My tip is to have a password manager. So every website you log into Gmail, Yahoo Mail, everything you use, you have a password for. And as we know,
and it's getting crazy. Now you need passwords for everything.
Exactly. And they always tell you, security experts tell you, don't use the same password on multiple sites.
I am bad with that.
Everybody's bad at that. Use a complicated password. Use numbers, letters, caps, uppercase, lowercase, symbols. Make it 24 characters or longer.
You're into that?
Yeah.
How can you remember all that?
I fucking can't, which is why I use a password manager.
Okay.
So when these sites get hacked, which happens all the time, Target, Lowe's, Best Buy,
often more than probably these companies let you know. They let you know about the biggies, but
because they have to, because the Federal Trade Commission regulations and things like that.
But there's small stuff happening left and right
all the time. When those password databases get out, they have your password, they have your email, they have probably more information, credit card, social security numbers, all that stuff. But so all they have to do is say, well, this guy's email for Lowe's was Jefe de Manos at whatever, and his password was I love monkeys. So they're going to try every single site.
How did you know my password?
I set it up for you, remember?
They're going to try listening, that's not totally my password.
It's I love monkeys 1. They're going to try it everywhere.
Okay.
So if you have a different password on every other site, it's not going to be effective because they won't be able to get in. So you can use a password manager to remember all these passwords for you.
Okay.
Next week, I'll have a recommendation on the one that I use. But this is just to plant the seed. Start thinking about a password manager. Secure yourself online.
But a password manager, when you say this, I used to have a little app where I could store all my passwords. Is that what you're talking about?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
But and
I had to put a password in to the password app, and then, oh, hey, here's all my stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a little preview for the continuing part 2 for next week. The one that I use is called LastPass because it's the last password you ever need to remember. You come up with one crazy password that you can remember and repeat. You sign into it using that, just like your little app. And then it has all the crazy passwords that it makes for you. My passwords, I couldn't remember for the life of me.
Wait, they make the passwords for you?
Yeah, you can tell it. So like if I change my password on my bank, let's say,
okay,
and it says, okay, I'm changing the password. Here's my old one. Generate a new one for me. And I'll tell it, it'll say, how long do you want it to be? I don't know, 24 characters. You want to use special characters? Yes. Do you want to use numbers? Yes.
And then you copy and paste it?
And then you say, yes, use that password, and it says, hey, you want me to remember that for you? And you go, yes, I do. And then it saves it in there for you. The nice thing about LastPass and other apps as well is they have apps for your phone. They have apps for all the platforms for your computers. So I have these fucked up passwords that if this thing ever dies and goes away, I can't get into a bunch of my shit. My credit cards, can't get into it. Bills, no idea.
But how do you remember it when you put it in? That's what I'm confused.
It does it for you.
If you go to Bank of America or Chase or wherever,
and it says, hey, we detected you're changing your password. Do you want me to save that? And B, there's a little button in the password field. You click it and it says generate new password. And then it gives you the options. So you can have it make a fucked up password that's 64 characters long that you'll never ever remember.
But you have to type that in when they ask you for your password.
No. The app types that in for you too. So you remember your one password, the last password you'll ever need.
It's like connected to your app. So what do you just like hit a button or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
And it's on the phone, it's on the iPad, it's on my phone, Android phones. So if I have this fucked up password to Facebook, which I do, but it's one that I remember, I go to Facebook and it says, oh, you're trying to sign in? Do you want to use your LastPass password? Yes, I do. Boop. And you're signed in. There are some trade-offs, security versus privacy, security, privacy versus convenience. It's kind of a little bit of a pain in the ass, but in the long run, it's worth it. So this is going to be probably the first in like a 3-parter.
Okay.
Helping people improve their online security. First one, think about a password manager. Just start thinking about it. How
I can't say that's necessarily picks of the week. That's more like tech talk.
Okay.
Or tech picks.
It's my tech pick of the week.
Tech pick of the week. Okay. And what's the name of the one you like?
The one I like is called LastPass, and I'll go into depth a little bit. I mean, they have a free version, they have a paid version. The paid version is $1 a month.
Okay.
It's completely worth it in my opinion. But
fascinating.
The real test is, can I get my parents to use it?
Yeah, or me.
or yeah, it's the same test.
Same test. Yeah. Well, I'm down to be a guinea pig, but it's already got me kind of confused.
So I just got to show you the ropes.
LastPass. So there you go, folks. Podcast, Thinking Sideways. If you're into mysteries and conspiracies and murders that are unsolved, and LastPass, if you're really looking for a great way to save your passwords and make them foolproof that no one can get them.
Yeah, and the point is really so that they can all be different across all of your different websites. That way, if your password database gets out, it's not going to affect you because your password for Lowe's.com is not the same as your password for Target.com. So you're safe.
Interesting. Yeah. I come from the world of I can never remember passwords. So I essentially, it's all the same one or the slightest variation. Like if I ever had money, like I would be a hacker's dream. It would just be like, literally, it would take probably 15, 20 minutes. I mean, it would just be like, that would be the end of it. Show over. They'd have everything. But I don't care about it much because it sounds stupid, but I just never, I don't, you know what I mean? Like I don't have any sensitive documents anywhere, or I don't have any money anywhere. So I know that's not the right attitude, but I'm not super concerned about online security because I don't feel like I have a lot to secure. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I'd be super bummed if somebody deleted my Twitter. I'd be super bummed if somebody deleted the band's Facebook or any of that stuff, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's the other idea. I mean, it helps protect your online identity as well. Because if somebody takes over, I know you don't have a Facebook, but if somebody takes over the band's Facebook and starts, posting a bunch of monkey butts or whatever, which I'm sure would be fine with you, you can damage your reputation. True. For the normal person.
Bowling for Soup, our buddies, they had if you will, the one thing that's weird about the TV thing is when you get like a phone call and stuff when they can't see you. You know what I mean? It's like,
but now it's like,
hello, So with Bowling for Soup, I don't know if you caught this, but their Twitter was recently hacked and like hacked. When I say hacked, I mean like somebody, and they were putting up gibberish. It was super weird, but I guess they like reached out. They had to contact Twitter. And I mean, and we're talking about a significant number of followers. We're not talking about, 100 people. And I remember seeing Jarrett posting stuff like, I literally just had an email conversation with like an actual hacker of like, why are you doing this? Like, and I don't think the person had any reason. It was no hate towards them.
58,666 followers, by the way.
Yeah. So, I mean, imagine accruing that amount of followers and you can't access them. And it was before they got that figured out, or I don't know if Twitter did it or whoever did it, but it was days. It wasn't like a couple hours. It was like really bad. Like somebody knew what they were doing. And I've never seen that before where it was openly and they couldn't access it. They couldn't even put a post up saying, hey guys, sorry, we got hacked. Like they had it on their own accounts. Like Jarrett had to throw something up like, hey, anybody following the BFS thing? We've been hacked, blah, blah, blah. It was complicated.
I'll tease you with this for the next episode of Dan's Tech Tips.
If you show your penis, I'm leaving.
It's a different kind of tease. There is a reason why you don't want your Twitter to get taken over in that instance. And it happened to a technology reporter.
Okay.
And it fucked up his entire life for about 2 weeks.
Really?
Yes. That story next week.
That story. More.
More at 11.
Cool. Okay. So we have LastPass and we have Thinking Sideways as our picks for the week. So that's where we're at. Dan, this week we can, if you'd like to, get into our topic of the week. If you're ready to rock.
Yeah.
Feel good?
I'm feeling all right.
Good over there.
Everybody watching? Good. You want to go to the bathroom? You want to get a break?
I think I would be like the best breakdancer in the world if people could
not see you.
Envision me like that. So everything's delayed. Like
this is great radio.
Yeah, totally. Me staring at a computer and myself.
Great.
Well, anything going on real quick? Anything cooking with you lately in the past since we last talked last week?
Not since last week. Just been, I work for a school district. School starts tomorrow.
Oh shit!
So it's been a little crazy. But,
well, let's talk about that really quick. What the fuck happened with school calendars, man? I don't know where you were from. I was from a smaller town than you, but my God, when I was a kid, you got 3 months off.
Yes.
Public schools are like June, July, August, you are off. Maybe you dipped into a couple days in July, maybe, but I distinctly remember. I'm talking when I was real little. When I was real little, I can remember almost it being like cold, hard dates. Like,
and I'll tell you when that day was here anyway. When in the ancient, in the 1900s, when I went to school, all the way through high school, the first day of school was always the day after Labor Day. Always.
Yeah.
It was always the first Tuesday after Labor Day.
That was the goodbye to summer. Yeah. The official goodbye to summer.
You started school the next day.
Kids, I mean, tomorrow is the 17th, 18th, the 8th, not even the 20s. They're not even starting school in the 20s.
They're mid-August.
Sucks, man. I was hanging out. It's a weird word, but I was gym I go to is a kid there. He's going into the 7th grade or something like that. Goes to Cabrillo. Real cool kid.
Oh, yeah.
And he
I went to Cabrillo.
Oh, there you go. Nice kid.
So did Kai.
He said it was a good school. He says it's a good school. But he was like, man, I got to go to school tomorrow. I'm not going to be in the gym as much anymore. And I'm just like, what are you tomorrow? I was like, you should have 2 more weeks, dude. And I was telling him what I just told you. And he was like, wait, you're telling me you got 3 full months? I'm like, it seems fair. If you're going to school for 9 months, 75% of the year you're in school, the other 25 you're not. Like this, like 15%, man. I would be livid if I was a kid.
I mean, we don't have to get into the politics of education and how studies have shown that kids learn better if they have less long breaks in between.
Yes, and they have proven that.
Yes, they have. There's still 180 days of school, so you're in.
Yeah, because you shut the down. That is true. The one thing about those long summers where we would go back to school. Morons.
You're like, what?
Like, you know, I've been drinking iced tea and eating bomb pops for 3 months. Like, what the fuck is a fraction? You know,
exactly. So they still.
Actually, that's like my real life.
That was like, you this morning.
If I went to school tonight, I'm like, man, I've been eating bomb pops all day. I don't know why I said bomb pops. They just great name.
I mean, I was gonna throw a Wawa, but you know, that's
yeah.
They start school earlier, but they have a fall break that we didn't have when I was in school. So they still go to school the same amount of days per year. They just it's closer to a year-round schedule.
I just feel like summer's been bastardized. Like, you know, summer's not what summer was.
It's tough.
Summer meant like just
summer meant Alice Cooper.
Yeah, it lasted forever. I can remember summers as a kid almost, and this sounds weird, but almost being ready to go back to school because I was kind of getting bored with nothing to do. Again, we're talking about when we went to school, and what would you say, the 1900s?
In the yes,
yeah, in the 1900s,
last century,
when we were little kids growing up, there wasn't as much to do. I mean, there simply wasn't as much to do.
Cape May, New Jersey.
Well, anywhere really. I mean, just with all the, I mean, my God, DVDs and video games and apps and phones, these things didn't exist.
Sure, and well, I guess
you know what I mean.
Sort of a double-edged sword for you because both of your parents were teachers, so they were also off all summer.
Yes,
so. You didn't probably have like the summer camps. Like my parents had my schedule so goddamn busy because they didn't want me getting into trouble and they want to be tired.
Well, you know what's funny is that's a really interesting point. But my parents are both teachers, and I've never even put that together. but my summers were probably slightly different than the average kids because I was essentially home with my parents.
Home with your family.
I didn't have the benefit of, you know, the other kids that would be like throwing some parties in the summer while their parents were at work, or, you know, just, you know,
that's a short party from 7 to 4.
Yeah. That's like, you know, you're absolutely right. Fuck, my parents fucked me on summers. I didn't get the real experience.
No, you didn't. I didn't either. It's fine. Because my parents worked all day and they're like, you're going to junior lifeguards and then you're playing water polo and then you're going to be sleeping. So
what's the best song ever written about summer? Summer's Over by Army of Freshmen excluded. You know,
because it's not about summer. It's about summer ending.
Over. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Because there's a lot of songs about summer.
Yeah. I'm sure Counting Crows has one that'll break your heart.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like a distinct summer song.
Boys of Summer.
Elvis Costello's The Other Side of Summer is a great summer tune. I'm talking about a tune that straight up references summer, but most people would probably start throwing a lot of Beach Boys songs.
So you're not saying like a summer tune that comes out in the summer and is like the summer song. You're saying a song about summer.
Here's a real
definitely Summer's Over.
Summer's Over. Army Freshman wildcard for you. Summer Lovin'. I know it's stupid, but Summer Lovin' from Grease, that is like a summer anthem. Like, first off, it's hooky as all hell.
If you're into musicals.
Yeah. I mean, girls love that song. My high school girlfriend was fanatical. Like, that was just, first off, Grease was her end all be all, like greatest film ever made, period. And that was like the single greatest song ever made. So, yeah. I start crying. Summer loving had me a blast. John Travolta.
Whoa. So what? All right. So that's been my week.
That's what's going on. Summer.
What's been going up with you? With you?
A little interesting. Nothing too crazy, but I had to review Salt and Pepper.
Oh, you went to that?
I had to review the Salt and Pepper hip hop show at our Ventura County Fair last night of the fair. Fair's really big in this part of the world. Friday night, 3 nights ago.
3 nights ago.
And I went to the show, had to review it for the paper. I was a casual Salt and Pepper fan. I was a big hip hop fan when I was a little kid, so I owned Salt and Pepper tapes and records, if you will.
Not the only one.
Yes, and I wasn't into them when they kind of got into their hokey sort of later period, super pop stuff, but. Salt and Pepper, it was really, I gotta tell you, it was a weird show, man. It was really different, and I could really see this podcast descending into an all over the place podcast. So I'm totally cool with that. We have to do that every once in a while, because we're already jumping. But I went to see, maybe this podcast is what the hell we've been up to. I went to see Salt and Pepper, and it was the weirdest show, and I'm going to tell you why, if the listener can imagine this. they're doing the old school hip hop thing, and fairs are very safe. You don't get a lot of hip hop at fairs, you know, from the lyrical content to the crowd that it brings out. A lot of fights, gets aggressive, but Salt-N-Pepa's older. They're safe. They bring out a completely different demographic.
Totally.
The place was bumping. It wasn't packed to the gills, but there was a lot of people there. I mean, it was jamming. So it was a good turnout. All sorts of different people, which is always nice. It's cool to go to a show, and what's neat about the fair is you see a lot of different walks of life.
Well, and your ticket, I mean, you don't have to buy a ticket to go to the show at the fair. You buy your entrance to the fair, and then you just go see the show.
Families and all sorts of people. So
my parents went to several shows this year.
So they come out, and the first thing that happens is DJ Spinderella comes out, and she's playing an old school hip hop song. I'm like, you know what? This could be a real badass old school hip hop show.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And I like the old school hip hop.
You do.
And then 2 dancers come out there in tracksuits or break dance, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be cool. Salt-N-Pepa or not, this is going to be a great show. Then Salt-N-Pepa comes out, they play a song, and after that, it literally descended into one of the stranger concerts I've ever been to.
This is what I heard from my coworker today, who was also at that show.
Get out of here. I'm interested to see what the person would say about it. So This was my experience. I know this sounds weird, Dan, but if you can believe it, by the way, it sounds like there's fireworks going off.
Yeah, keep talking.
Everything
cool?
Take a
look. Yeah.
Are we about to get shot up? Again, we're in a new location.
We're not in the hood, though.
Okay. Well, it is in your parents' basement garage. So
it's lined with lead.
Yeah, lovely place if anybody's looking. There's all sorts of stuff in it. But while Dan goes, I'm going to stare at the camera.
Look at that. Oh, no, we're good. It's just the neighbor trimming his trees.
I feel like this camera now, Dan, and people, this is what's going to throw me off. I got to stop thinking about it. I have to remember that the majority of people that listen to our podcast aren't going to be watching this live. So I got to stop talking about the camera. Yeah. No one's looking at me right now.
I mean, but maybe it'll entice them to watch live.
But it kind of looks like found footage from a horror movie. You know what I mean? Like 2 dudes doing a podcast in a basement. Tell you. Yeah. And we get killed. Like that's the last time. Ah! Like one of those things. Back to Salt-N-Pepa.
We'll come back to that because I have something to say about that.
Found footage
to post. No, not found footage. Just you'll see.
Okay. So they play a song, great. Then they start talking to the audience. What's up? Everybody throw your hands in there. They're doing the spiel. It's great. It's hip hop. I understand that. But then this is really weird. It felt like they were stalling for time, and they started to play. I know this is going to sound weird, but they started to play other people's records.
This is what I heard.
Other people's records.
Yeah.
So they'd be like, Spinderella, yo, why don't you play something like rock and roll for the rockers in the house, you know, and everybody cheers. And Spinderella would then play like 30 seconds of a Guns N' Roses song. And it's Salt-N-Pepa didn't rap over it. You thought, oh, maybe they're going to rap over it. They kind of just encouraged the audience to sing along and rock out. And then they were like, wait a minute, we got any funk fans in the house? And then they'd lay into a funk tune like, we got any independent women? But they would not play 5 seconds of the song. They'd play like a whole minute of like Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive or Sugar Hill Gang. And the audience would like sing along. And then ultimately they would play another full Salt-N-Pepa song. I'm telling you, it was like 10 minutes in between tunes. They're talking, they're doing skits, and they kept saying it's an experience, not a show. Like, you're at the Salt-N-Pepa experience. But I saw people leaving in droves that were just like, yo, dude, I've been here. I kid you not. In the first 30 minutes of this concert, I saw 2 Salt-N-Pepa songs in 30 minutes.
That's all there were.
The rest of the time, you'd be surprised.
I know.
Wikipedia, them. There were more hits than you realized.
I got it pulled up right here.
Yeah. Soup. There's Shoop. Let's talk about sex. Push it. What a man. What a man. What a mighty man. So, but it was.
Is that your anthem?
Yeah. The concert was weird, dude. It was really. I caught most of it because I was reviewing it and I wanted to write about it. But like, I called it out. The article's coming out this week, and I was just kind of like, I called the record like, hey, anybody want to listen? This article is called, hey, anybody want to listen to some records? A live review of Salt-N-Pepa. It felt like they were killing time. And my thinking on this is a lot of times at hip hop shows, they're packages. And you only need to do 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and you go out and you play your 4 or 5 hits and you get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a good chance that that's what they're used to doing. But our fair has no openers.
No,
you got to hold down
an hour to 2 hours.
Yeah, 2-hour concert. And I literally got the feeling that there was somebody like a tour manager was like, ladies, we got a problem. Like, they want 2 hours. And they're like, what? We got an hour show.
About?
It just was weird. So what did your homie say about it?
He said basically exactly the same thing, that they they came out, they danced around a bit, and they played like a lot of GNR. They played Nirvana. They played all kinds of weird shit. And almost like he said, it was almost like they were stalling for time the whole time.
The whole time,
because then they were like, "Oh, that's all the time we got. They only gave us an," and then they like sort of did like a fake encore kind of thing, so they could come back and do Push It. Is what, and he's a big music head, like he knows all of this shit. He just said it was weird.
It was weird.
Yeah,
it was really weird. It was a weird show. And maybe this is a jumping point, so people don't get sick of the fact that we're talking about this weird Salt and Pepper concert. But dude, let's talk weird shows. You and I have seen more concerts than the average person, right?
Some fucking weird ones.
Some weird ones. And in terms of ones that we've played in, we've got some that I'll put up against anybody's weird story.
Well, we got to flip a coin to talk, figure out who's going to talk about that one. Because I know what you're talking about.
Oh, well, there's quite a few. How about a concert that you weren't a part of? Something that you just attended that was weird. Not bad, but weird. You know, can you think of something that you went to?
Yeah, I'll throw this out first, and I'll preface it by saying I hadn't seen the band before. I didn't know what they were about, and I was pretty young.
Oh my God, I just realized what other band you were talking about. But go on, go on.
So this concert,
we have to tell that story.
Oh my God. GWAR.
GWAR, okay. Were you familiar with them?
Very, very casually.
Oh, okay.
I knew of them. Like I knew the Aquabats, obviously, and it's a big theater show. It's a giant performance, but I didn't know really what I was not getting into. I was at a show. I didn't know what it really was.
You didn't know they did the dress up thing or the fake blood.
I knew the dress up thing, and I knew a little bit about the fake blood, but that's kind of it. I didn't know the extent. I didn't know how awesome it was. Like it was fucking badass.
Yeah.
I've seen them since then. It was still badass. And I was like, when I got there, I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
Yeah.
And also, additionally, so I was there with my brother. I was still in high school, and my brother's friend had another friend, third-party friend, who like knew the band and was like, yeah, there's this one song he's going to come out with a mask on, because all these dancers come out at some point and do like sort of sexy dancing. And he's like, yeah, he's going to come out like basically in a thong with a mask on and a slide whistle and just play the slide whistle seductively. And this kind of like went in one ear and out the other. I was like, oh, all right. And then when it happened, I was like, oh, that's what the fuck is happening? Like, this is just weird. Like,
GWAR was crazy.
And it was awesome, and I love it now. I loved it then, but I was like, what is going on?
I have heard some loud bands in my day, but the last time that I saw GWAR a handful of times, 3 or 4 or 5 times, 3 times. They were one of the loudest bands I've ever seen. I went to see them, I think, with Owen at the Ventura Theater, not too long ago, because the singer has died.
Yeah,
GWAR's gone now. But they were so loud, and the place was not full. The place was like, I don't know, maybe there's 300, 400 people there or something like that. And it was cavernous loud. I mean, it was, I don't need earplugs. Like, I'm the guy that will be deaf by the time I'm 50.
You
like
and Goldie.
Yeah, we're bad. When we jam in our tiny little practice space.
What?
Yeah, Aaron and I are the guys that like don't wear earplugs.
That's why the movie's done, because you can't actually hear the music you're trying to get into it.
True. But I was putting my fingers in my ears at a concert. Like, I've never even done that. GWAR was loud. Very loud. Yeah. But I don't know how weird that is. That's more like.
But it was weird for me. It wasn't like weird in general, because that's what they do, and it's great. But the experience for me was like, what am I looking at?
Yeah.
This is odd.
Very true. I'm trying to think of something that's a little off the beaten path in terms of, I've seen weird stuff where like people aren't that good, and there's a whole audience sitting there. Like I saw Blues Traveler fairly recently. Aaron went out and worked for Cracker, who was opening up for Blues Traveler. I like Blues Traveler. Like, I'm an actual fan of that
their
band.
First record, like everyone else does.
Yeah, I own multiple records. I'm a guy that like stayed with them, and I think there's a lot of hidden gems, and I think they were better songwriters than they got credit for. But dude, John Popper's voice,
I remember you telling me this.
So bad, Dan, that like he was like, he couldn't hit any of the high notes. He was cracking left and right. Like, he could do the low stuff, but instead of changing the key of their hits,
which is what everyone does,
which is what everybody does, they were still playing
Secrets out.
So he was doing like run around, and he couldn't get to like, the
and he had,
you gotta give me the run.
He had a range on him too.
Oh yeah, he's putting the mic out into the crowd, and they're singing. I heard he had a surgery. I don't remember exactly. He was having trouble, but he was saying but he kept saying like, oh, I got a cold right now, I'm fighting it. But the thing is, I was on multiple dates of that tour because I went out and hung with Aaron for like a week, and the cold he was talking about in LA was the same cold that homeboy had a month later in the Midwest. meaning like I got the feeling that he was going out every night knowing that the pipes were gone. And I guess Aaron was saying it was kind of like a unspoken thing on the tour that other artists were like, oh man, he sounds bad. He could still play the harmonic like it's the end of the world.
Right.
But it was noticeably bad to the point like if I paid money and was a fan, I'd be bummed, you know? And that's crazy to see a big act, because sometimes you think with big acts they're just always going to sound awesome,
because a lot of them do,
and that's not the case, you know.
Well, so we need to be careful about this discussion because we're talking about weird stuff, right? Because I could go on for days about bands that I've seen that have been bad,
but we're talking different.
Well, different is different than weird.
Different is different than weird.
Words have meanings, Chris.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So that was weird just to see somebody kind of fake
weird experience for you.
I've heard reports, but I've seen some stuff online.
Reports are coming in online that
a friend of mine went to see Everclear and said that it was a very similar experience with him. And he was always a bit of a suspect singer. And I saw him once acoustic and he wasn't that good vocals.
Right.
But he got through it.
Sure.
But he's full band with Everclear. And he was just like, it was stunning. Like he had tickets to see him the next night. He was a big fan and was just like, dude, it was almost unlistenable. And they pull the same trick now where they try and get the audience to sing the hard parts.
I noticed you do that a lot.
Yes, totally. But I at least do it immediately. You know what I mean? Like the whole time. You know what I mean? It's you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
So I mean, but that's happening to a lot of these older artists.
Yeah, you can't sing like that forever.
You can't, and they're stuck. They have songs in certain keys, all that kind of stuff, and your voice changes. Like you said, you can't.
It does.
A lot of these guys were doing this stuff in their early 20s,
and even if you maintain your voice perfectly and you don't drink and you don't smoke and you do your vocal exercises, you still fucking get old.
Yeah.
And everything else falls apart. Your vocals included. I mean, it's just a muscle like everything else.
Think about that. If that's how you've always earned your living, right?
That's rough.
And you still have work out there. It's not like no one will take you. You can still get shows. You can still play. Maybe you're not as big as you were, but it's still how you make your living. And your trade is being taken from you. It's almost the equivalent of an athlete whose skills are deteriorating in a certain sense.
Yeah.
And they can't perform at the level that they were. And at what point do you, point do you just kind of, and these are the singers. We're not talking about guitarists or piano players or keyboard players or bass players. We're really talking about vocals.
I mean, if Lloyd's of London will insure J-Lo's ass, I'm sure that they can insure somebody's vocal cords.
You know who else has that problem a lot is drummers.
They don't sing well.
Well, yeah, that number one, they don't sing well.
Phil Collins accepted.
But at number two, a lot of those guys can't play. They reach a certain age where they
hard,
physically.
Man. That's a shit's. Well, musicians in general, they develop arthritis. They have arthritis. That's really the best way to describe it. You can't perform like you used to because your fucking fingers give out.
But most physically demanding instrument is the drums.
Oh, hands down, far and away.
Yeah, and that's why you see a lot of these old bands.
That's why Jimmy, our drummer, was like this. Like a fucking rail. He's ripped all the time because he just plays drums.
Totally. I mean, I can remember Mike, being on tour and having nights where he just had to submerge his hands in cold water after the show. He was in so much pain from tightening up and
blisters
and elbows and tendinitis and their hands are ripped up. We're laughing, having a great time. Like, you pussy. And like literally like he's got tennis elbow, his hands are swollen. And just because you can't
demanding.
Play that hard for 45 minutes to an hour to maybe an hour and a half every night for 6-7 days. I remember when we were very busy touring, I remember Mike would look at days off like they were gifts from heaven. Like he would just,
because they were.
I just gotta get, I gotta have a night off from doing that.
Yeah, totally.
It's tough being a drummer, but it's also the reason why most of them are fucking insane. Drummers by far are always the craziest guy in a band.
I mean, that's been our experience. Yes, I'm not sure that drumming.
I think that's across the board.
I'm not sure that's drumming is the thing that puts them there.
But they're called to it. You are called to an instrument that doesn't create melody and you strike something. You are called to an instrument where you physically attack something. Nobody grabs a piano and says, I can't wait to beat the shit out of this.
It's much like Rustin Cobb said in the first season of True Detective. More like me being right for the job.
Yeah, drummers are nuts. I mean, look at history.
Special breed.
Yeah, look at history and do some of the greatest bands of all time. It's always the drummer that dies. The Who. Right? Gone, that guy.
Spinal Tap.
Spinal. Well, that's the reason Spinal Tap did the whole joke.
I know.
Led Zeppelin, all those fucking guys, all the drugs that those motherfuckers did, all the fucking shit those guys got into. Yet the drummer goes first. You know, I mean, they're just wild.
It's a hard job.
Yeah,
work hard, play hard, J-Man.
Yeah, drumming is a hard job, but it attracts a special breed.
Well, and certainly very hard to do well. And the drummers that do well are very, very good. They're very talented.
Yeah, and they have to commit to it, and especially to do it, you know, later in life. I worked a I don't want to say because I want to knock on the band or anything, but I worked at a tribute show, tribute band this past weekend. Just literally got some work. Our city puts on local concerts in a park every
Furiously
weekend.
Racking my brain to figure this out.
Yeah. But it was a tribute band, and it was one of those things. Hey, you want to make a couple bucks, work at this concert for an hour, do some setup? Yeah, sure, whatever, come by. So I did that, and it was a tribute band to a very famous band.
Okay.
And a famous band that the Big Lebowski hates. There you go. So that's how you can figure out how it is. But
I hate the Doors so much, man.
The band's there, they're setting up, and I'm watching them because here's my experience. I'm just sitting there setting stuff up. Nobody knows these guys in a tribute band think they're hot shit. They have no idea. Like, I don't mean it in a weird way that God knows I'm nobody.
They have no idea who I am.
Yeah, exactly. I have no idea who I am. But just I know the shit they're talking about. Like when they take the hour sound check, I know like you don't need it, dudes. You're showing off kind of thing, whatever. But
absolutely.
The drummer, I mean, he just looked beat up compared to the other guys. Just he was an older gentleman, God bless him, but you could just tell just the hunch, the everything about it just had that look of, oh God, I bet this is how this guy makes his living, and he plays in 20 different bands, but he's probably been drumming for 40 years. I mean, that's not impossible, and that's the only way, and it's just grueling. You know, other guys are walking out with their guitar, and he's walking out with piece after piece of drum.
Such a pain in the ass.
Oh man, craziness. So we are hopping around all the place tonight, you know, keeping it musical. But let's get back to weird shows now. How about some weird shows that we've played? Because I mean, there are quite a few. We once played a show when we very first started in LA, where the gentleman that was putting on the show, it was a party in his backyard.
Oh yeah, in Eagle Rock,
California.
Absolutely,
and he
remember
decided
this.
to build a stage.
He had seen us. Did he see us at Warped Tour at the Roxy? So we were young. We were 21, 22, something like that.
I'd be willing to say not even. I mean, we were hovering around 20.
Yeah, fair. Saw us. That's right. I do remember him seeing us at the Roxy, and either approached you that night or got your email and said, later hit you up. My kid's having a birthday.
Yeah.
Will you come play the birthday? We're like, yeah, you got to stay.
And at that time, we play anything, you know.
We still will.
Yeah.
Even more so then.
Yeah.
The guy, as you said, fucking built a stage. He's like, oh, I'm going to build a stage.
This is a house in a neighborhood, folks. We're not at a club.
I know no one knows I don't even know where Eagle Rock is. I just know it's in California, and I've been there. I mean, it's out there. It's nicer now than it was at the time of this party.
True.
But I mean, it's just a neighborhood. It's in the suburb of LA, you know? So we're like, all right, fuck yeah, we'll play. You're building the stage. That's cool. Yeah. We get to the party, and I don't want to steal your thunder. Go. The quote unquote stage is cinder blocks and plywood. So he, quote, built a stage by setting out cinder blocks and covering them with plywood.
He's making it while we're there.
Oh yeah, as we're pulling up, he's putting it together. I don't think there's nails going into it. Like
but it gets crazier because we realize he's like, man, these cinder blocks aren't holding up the stage. I need more bricks.
He's kind of sweaty.
He's very sweaty. He's talking at an incredibly fast rate.
Yes.
He's sweaty, and he kept wiping his nose. Now, at the time, innocent little Chris, who had not really
innocent little all of us.
Yeah. I didn't realize that he was showing all the telltale signs of a man who was on a coke binge.
Yes.
I just thought he was a little wacky.
Also, the house was pretty much empty.
There
was like a big TV and no furniture.
So he then says, you guys need to help me. I got some more bricks in the front yard. Like, okay, sure, man. You know, again, we weren't old, cynical dudes. We're like, yeah, man, we'll help you carry some bricks, build the stage. It sounds fun. There was another band there, you know. And we wanted to play. I think we were more about just wanting to help him with his stage so we could play. We go to the front yard, and the man is removing bricks from his wife's garden. And when I say removing, I don't mean they're there. I mean he has a sledgehammer and is smashing the bricks in front of his house. This guy is coked up out of his fucking mind with a sledgehammer and is destroying essentially the front of his home.
Yeah.
Wife hangs out the window. What the fuck are you doing? This guy, like, literally not skipping a beat, like totally pulls the freaking that Dave Chappelle line, just like, shut up, bitch, we need a stage. Like, I mean, like literally starts smashing the bricks. We're carrying his garden bricks like past his wife, like, oh, we're sorry about your home, man. You know, we're putting the bricks under the thing. The guy's out of control. He's sweating, he's screaming, he's running around. But god damn it, did the dude build a stage?
He actually did build a stage, and no one fell through it. I've played worse stages in our career.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, that's a gentleman. And again, we never saw this guy again. We're going back freaking close to 20 years or something.
And so after the stage is built, and
you remember more. I mean, I kind of blocked it out.
I was hanging out with Mike Rini the whole time because we were smoking cigarettes. That's when I used to smoke. And they were grilling. They were like making carne asada. We were fucking chowing. The guy's like, I think I need to record this. Like, I'm going to go buy a camera.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Just this is before, this is probably the late
this
90s.
Dude that we don't know, we are in his backyard. He is destroying his home. Yeah. He's on a coke bender that we're not aware of. Literally turns to you guys and says, I need to record the show. Disappears.
I'm going to go buy a camera.
I'm going to buy a camera. Comes back, 30 minutes later, 40 minutes later with like an expensive camera, not a piece of shit. Right at the time, it's probably like $1,000 camera.
Yeah, he also had a wad of cash on him.
A wad of cash.
Yeah, like,
and he's running around filming everything. Like, it was. I really think we played a drug party, but we just didn't know,
or a drug runners party, or a drug dealers party.
We were way too young to understand what was going on.
And to be fair, everything was totally cool. There was no other weirdness. There was none of us feared for our safety, I don't think.
But his wife was like hiding in the house, and she didn't speak good English.
I mean, it was definitely bizarre.
Yeah.
But I never was afraid for my life or anything.
And I believe
everybody was super cool about
it. Didn't we end up, was that called Grahamstock?
Yes.
His name was Graham.
It was Grahamstock.
And he christened it Grahamstock
that night.
And honestly, we have never heard from that guy again. Spoken to that guy again. Literally, if you put a gun to my head and said you had to find this guy, there'd be no way to find him.
No, I mean, he's probably dead.
Yeah. There are some people that you run into for a brief period of time, and you're like, he'll be dead soon.
But it's not like we had, like you said, not like we interacted with this dude 7 or 8 times. Like, saw us at the Roxy. He was like, "You guys are fucking great. Why don't you play my party?" We played.
This was not a friend.
Yeah, and then he was gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
Phantom.
Totally.
Like Kaiser Soze.
I mean, I still have the image of him swinging that sledge and smashing up those bricks.
Weird,
and these aren't bricks in like the front yard. These are the bricks that are like,
they're cinder blocks
attached to the home.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it was wild. That's a wild one. Throw a couple more weird ones out at you and weird shows. And again, we could literally be here all night. I mean, weird show leads to weird show.
I mean, I got nothing to do.
Yeah, totally. It could be a long podcast, but here's one. God, I don't even know which. There's so many juicy ones. One time we went to play a show about 2 hours up north. Band swap thing. It was a weeknight show. It was going to be small, all ages, something or another. And we got to the Mexican restaurant that we were supposed to play at. And I don't even know if you remember this. Well, you'll remember part of it. And it was closed. So it was some Bodunk promoter, basically, who thought he had the venue. There was like 2 local bands. This is one of these shows there's going to be like 30, 40 kids at, And it was like in Santa Maria, I believe. Okay. And places closed. And I believe one of the kids in the band, or maybe it was the promoter, said, let's go have the show at my house. And there's 20, 30 kids in the parking lot.
I absolutely remember this, and we're like, we played with Psycho Cafe.
Yeah, we're like, okay, fuck it. So we went to this house. And when I say house, it is a normal house in a neighborhood.
Yes.
And we set up not in the living room, right? We set up in the dude's bedroom. So we are playing, and this is not a big bedroom. This is your classic small house.
Not the size of the barrage.
Yeah.
Barrage.
We're in a bedroom, right? And fucking like literally like crammed into it. There's like 3 people that can watch in the bedroom. Everybody else is in the little hallway peering in. There's like 20 people there. And we're fucking going off. And at that time, I was jumping off whatever I could get my hands on. So I'm on the dude's bed like an 8-year-old, bouncing up, like fucking singing lyrics. You guys are all crammed up against the wall.
Par for the course.
The freaking lights are out. Like, it must have been the loudest thing ever. We like put amps in there. Like, I mean, the cops came. And this is just like a Wednesday night. It's like a school night.
I wouldn't want to hear that show
ever,
but I will say it was a badass show.
Yeah, it was wild. Just playing in a bedroom because we played a lot of house parties. We've played a ton of house parties, but that was a bedroom show. And this wasn't acoustic, man. I mean, it was like full on bedroom. Like, I miss those days when there was all these shitty promoters. I know it sounds terrible because they were all shitty. You always got fucked on cash. It was always a nightmare. They never promoted good. But the one thing about them, it was always an adventure. Yeah.
Every fucking show at Jerry's Pizza, like, oh my God.
We would work with promoters and you literally said, something's happening tonight. Don't know what, but nothing's going down normal, you know?
Yes.
We would play a pizza restaurant in Bakersfield called Jerry's Pizza.
Actually had some underground cred. Like a lot of big bands played there. Yeah. It was kind of the
only place.
The underground place to go in Jerry's Pizza if you weren't playing the arena, which no one was.
So there was a promoter there. Yet again, a gentleman was very nice to us, but displayed all the traits of a cokehead. And again, I didn't know.
We heard horror stories about this guy from other bands. And we're like, what are you talking about? He's great.
Yeah, I mean, I was so naive.
Never did us wrong.
I was so naive to that. I mean, I look back in my life and I see all these people that I'm like, that guy was probably really on cocaine. But, you know, cocaine became a super weird place to go. But at least I find that people, I certainly don't use it. You don't use it. I've never used it. That's not my thing. But I feel that people are more open about it now than they were
definitely
15, 20 years ago.
Certainly. Drug culture is much more accepted now.
Across the board.
Which is great. Yeah. I think that's fine if that's what you're into. Just take it easy.
Yeah, not my thing. Never done it. Don't want to do it. But if that's your thing, whatever. But now I look back and see all these people that I worked with.
And now
I'm talking
from
managers to promoters to other bands. There were other bands that were doing drugs that we were out with that I don't even think we had any clue.
I certainly didn't.
Yeah, any clue. But now I look at certain behaviors and I see some of the others seeing certain bands fight. And I know you can think of one or two off the top of your head that I certainly would never mention. But it's like, that all makes sense. That's how those guys all wanted to murder each other. And then the next day they showed up like they were all friends and it was cool. Where, you know, we, not being under the influence of a lot of stuff, if we got in a fight, we'd be weird for like a week. But these guys are like, oh, he pulled a knife on me last night, but it's cool. You know, and like, what, you need to be on something to get into a knife fight with your friend.
This leads me into a really, really quick segment. Of shitting on golds.
Okay.
Speaking of fights in the band, the only thing, well, there are a few, but one that just came to mind when
shitting on golds for the new listeners is an early podcast segment where we would tell an embarrassing story about Aaron.
Because he doesn't listen, obviously. Why would he? Exactly. I wouldn't either. When we were on Warped Tour.
Oh, okay. I don't know if it's the same story, but the only time that I've ever like really had beef with Aaron, and Aaron and I talked about it quite recently. I was telling Reza, the guy who produced the movie, about it, was an incident on Warped Tour. This may be the incident, but it's the only time that Aaron and I really, like, for real, like, he was furious with me.
Yes.
Don't know if it's the same story.
I mean, everybody has a breaking point.
Yeah.
It's just funny where other people hit, because you know where yours is. You're like, of course that pissed me off. And everybody else is like, dude, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's just funny to see other people's. And like, touring is stressful.
Yes.
You're in a van with a bunch of people all the fucking time. You don't sleep well. You don't eat well. You don't shower. You don't shit. Like, everything is fucked.
And Warped Tour is that on steroids.
And it's 100 degrees everywhere and probably 95% humidity.
And not on a bus. Not like these young bands now that all split up buses and all that stuff. We were in a fucking van, sleeping next to each other. And people are like, what do you mean sleeping next to each other? Sleeping.
We took two of the seats out of the van, so we were literally laying on the floor
every
next
night.
To one another.
2 to 3 guys would have to lay on the floor of a fucking van and drive hours. There's a show every single day.
And to be clear, we're not complaining right now. We were stoked to be doing it. We're just trying to put you, dear listener, in the mind frame of where we were.
Yeah.
So this, for 3 straight months,
you go insane. You go insane.
You go a little nuts. And people cross lines that you didn't know you had, and you're just like, fuck you.
And there's a jealousy factor too on Warped Tour. And Warped Tour would be a great podcast, the history of it, everything. We should talk about it. But
definitely
so I don't want to give too much of that Warped Talk away, but you are also watching bands that are your peers to a certain degree.
Sometimes
get on tour buses. And they're like, man, I feel bad for you guys tonight. It's a 10-hour drive through Canada. Right? And you're like, you guys are going to be on a bus.
You're going to sleep through
partying, AC, sleeping through it, and then waking up late because we would have to wake up and set up our tent and all this bullshit. And the only way we would survive is if we sold CDs.
Yes.
Back when people bought CDs. And these other bands, it wasn't the case. So there's also a little hostility that kind of cramps up from the smaller bands. And you're tired. Like there'd be days where you couldn't get a shower. I mean, literally, you couldn't get a shower.
No.
The venue didn't have a shower. And then he finally got the one, and it turned out it was like an ice spring cold in the woods of Oregon.
Portland. Yeah, no, that absolutely happened.
And the snap point that we're about to talk about is,
I think it was in Washington.
That location. The location, I remember walking to the one where we couldn't shower.
That could be right.
Yeah,
it could be right.
So please.
So, you know,
the snapping point.
We keep things fun and light. We prank each other all the time. That's kind of what we do. And I don't remember what the impetus was for this, but I think it was you, Chris, put a bunch of cereal in Aaron's suitcase.
You're close. It was me. You got that part right, but it was trail mix.
A trail mix. Close enough.
I had to explain this to Reza. I did not dump trail mix all throughout his suitcase. In his zipper pocket, the front pocket on a suitcase, I dumped it in there. So it's not like it was in his underwear or his socks. But regardless, when he opened up his front zipper pocket, it was stuffed with trail mix.
And when you've shit in porta potties for 19 straight days in the blistering heat and humidity and really showered 2 of those,
totally,
along with everything else, sometimes trail mix in the front of your bag is
that the point? That's all it takes. Yeah, exactly.
He threw that box at you and said, fuck you, like you guys kind of got into it for a minute.
Yeah.
And I think Rainey, is Rainey still on that tour? Rainey was on that tour.
The classic line from that. Do you remember his not speech, but you remember, like, because I remember that I told Reza. So Aaron, if you can imagine him furiously dumping trail mix out of his suitcase, like Dan said, the snap point, and he just is screaming, "This is unacceptable!" And then, of course, you're laughing your ass off because you know that statement is gonna last the test of time, like punctuating like a script. This is unacceptable.
I think Mike and I were like throwing the football. We were like, what? What's happening?
Yeah, that was bad. And I've since apologized to him multiple times.
This was 10 years ago.
That was his breaking point. We've all had him. I mean, I've seen everybody. I mean,
every single one of us.
I had, my famous incident in front of the
in front of the Roxy.
In front of the Roxy.
Sorry, not the Roxy. It was, God damn it, the Troubadour. In front of
the Troubadour in Hollywood. I snapped. We'd been on the road for a long time. We were playing at the Troub. And
we had just played the night before at House of Blues, San Diego. Beautiful venue, hell of a show.
And I left my suitcase with all my clothes at the venue, literally on stage. It was like I was leaving and left. So imagine an empty stage, and the only piece of product left is my suitcase. But it's your life when you're on the road like that, or anyone that's traveled. It is your entire
literally
existence.
Everything.
So all I got is the clothes on my back, and back then they're just to this day certain shirts you want to wear to show, or pants or shorts. So I'm wearing my night clothes, like I'm wearing my basketball shorts and like a Holy t-shirt, and we're playing the LA show. And back then it was a big deal. We were way in the midst of trying to get the record deal and A&R coming, and who's going to be there.
Our like hometown show.
It's supposed to be the big night. It's supposed to be the big night, and I didn't find out till I got there, and I realized, and I snapped, man. It's one of the few times it is one of the few times in my life where I was not completely in control of what was occurring. And I found, I'm digging through, and I realized, I mean, we're playing in like 30 minutes. I realized my whole life is I have nothing. And literally,
famous last words,
I'm out front of the Troubadour.
So I think you met
Santa Monica Boulevard,
you weren't married but your girlfriend, soon to become wife, had met us down there because it was the local show, and you were sort of explaining what was happening, and the two of you were walking in front of, I don't know, myself, because I definitely remember seeing
I blocked out all details,
and probably Kai and Aaron, like we were walking to go get
Kai's
food.
Mom was there. She remembers this.
Marlene, she's great. So we're all watching this happen, but you're talking to your future wife, walking down Santa Monica Boulevard,
and I just freaked out because I was tired. I was exhausted. We had been on the road for a long time. And I literally found, like, I felt like my whole life was gone. And I remember, I don't know if I threw something or.
Oh, no. I will reenact this in a moment.
Okay. I just remember screaming, and this had totally happened. And it wasn't to be funny. It was from my heart. I just remember, like, frustration. It's just like, I have nothing. I mean, like, I at the top of my lungs. So I look like a fucking homeless lunatic on Santa Monica Boulevard, just like, hey, we got a drunk one out there, just like some dude screaming, I have nothing, which is, again, classic. I mean, just a classic line,
Well, so
classic.
Here's how I remember it. same thing. You're talking to Amy. You realize, sorry, your future wife, and Amy's not a real name. Just realize that you don't have anything. And we're walking behind you, about 10 feet behind you, as you're explaining this whole thing, sort of playing it out in your head, really realizing what's happening. And you go, now I have nothing. But you did this amazing jump, which if you're watching live, dear viewer, you will see this. And you were just like explaining the thing. You're like, now I have like both feet slammed down on the ground in this epic display of like anger.
I've blocked out the physical part of it.
It was so fun. It was like physical comedy because we were all just like, oh my God.
How can you not laugh at that?
Oh,
it's amazing. It's fucking amazing. But oh God. That was legit total breakdown, dude. I had another one in St. Louis at a Chinese restaurant where I freaked out. Yeah. I mean,
oh yes, you did.
Yeah, I mean, but it happens, man.
It does. To be fair, I've blocked mine out too, and I know I've had them.
Yeah, you've had more like super pissed moments though, because you get pissed.
I just get angry.
Yeah, I've seen you really pissed once or twice. I'm not getting one that like totally comes to mind. Because when I stepped on your glasses on the last tour, all things considered, you handled that very well. Like the Dan of 10 years ago would not have gone down like that.
I was so angry.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Understandable.
You have no idea.
Understandable. And that was the worst night ever not worst night ever, but it was the single worst night of the tour because that happened. But then there was some weird bullshit that happened backstage.
Was some other bullshit that happened,
that I won't get into, but it was some fucked up bullshit, and I was in the crosshairs of it, and I was in a situation where I couldn't there's a certain hierarchy that occurs on a tour that I think anybody could understand, and there's always going to be somebody that's power trippy, and this is nobody in bands, but there was a power tripper involved in this scenario, and he got essentially wrong information, but he took it by law for the opportunity to power trip where anybody else on earth would have, oh, that's what's up. Okay, cool. It was one of these things that was so small and so insignificant. If you would have saw the person's reaction to it, you'd kind of be freaked out. You'd be like, yo, something's not right with that person.
Didn't make any sense.
Yeah, but I was completely caught in the crosshairs and it all happened at one time. So it's like, dude, Dan's fucking freaking out. You stepped on his glasses. And I'm thinking, I'm in my head, I'm like, are you fucking with me? His glasses are on his fucking face. What do you like? He's Dan's glasses when it was on Clayton's glasses, and I stepped on them climbing on a speaker. And you had rested them on the speaker, like, well, this is a safe place. Out of the way. Yeah. And truth be told, I think if it was the old days of being on the road every night, that never would have happened. But like just how we do shows and like, oh, we don't play together much, and like there's no discussion, like, oh, this is the point where Chris is gonna climb on a speaker or whatever. Those things didn't occur. So I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? And somebody told me a story, like, dude, like he can't fucking see, his glasses are broke, like I'm like, oh no, like so instantly feel fucking awful. And like I gotta go talk to Dan and what's up. And then all of a sudden someone is fucking yelling at me. So I'm just like, what the fuck is going, like, and it's totally one of those moments like, I'm a good dude, I don't deserve this, I'm working my ass off, we just played a good show, people were stoked, fucking Dan's pissed off, fucking, so like my boy's pissed off, then this fucking dickhead's fucking pissed off, and then I'm starting to get pissed off, and it's like, well, Dan's got every right to be pissed off, I'm not going to get pissed off at him, but I can't get pissed off on this dude or things could get really weird. Like, and then like the tour's almost over. It's like 3 nights left or something. Like I'm not sinking this whole ship to make a tough guy point. It's not who I am, but I was just like, it was one of those things of just that tour stress and insanity.
Well, and that changed the whole dynamic of the tour, not the incident with you and I, my glasses, with us and the other band that we were on tour with. I think all of us were like, and again, it had nothing to do with the band, but all of us were like, really? But all right. That's kind of bullshit, dudes. Come on.
It was super bullshit. And I'm a guy, as you know, I get affected by that stuff a lot more than other people. Some of you guys can have 2 beers. Yo, fuck that, dude, whatever. But I'm always like, oh, man, I want to fix it. I want it to be cool. As opposed to just being like, what a fucking dick, But it's just some people, you can't, as you know, there are some people that there's no way to make them see reason and then you realize it's a power trip and you realize that person's stress and that's how they're reacting. But man, tour is a weird world, man. I mean, there are pressure cookers everywhere. And when it's great, it's the coolest thing ever, man. But when it goes funky, it goes funky. So again,
shit explodes.
We've been all over, but
everywhere.
Let's get back to wrap this up,
yeah,
since we're getting to the end, we got to talk about the weirdest show that you and I have ever witnessed in our entire life. And I think we both know what it is.
Without question.
Go ahead. What is it? Who was the band?
Kennesaw, Georgia.
Yes.
Playing at a club called Swayze's.
I'm impressed that you know the state, city, and club. And the band was...
Club is doing it a real big favor.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a room.
Yeah.
The band was called Tree Fort. We have to have talked about this at some point. I can't believe we haven't.
I don't think we haven't. We have
Tree Fort with a PH.
And this band actually got a little bit of a weird underground rep because they did go out on Warped Tour and they proceeded to do some fucking crazy shit every night and got kicked off.
They did. And they
were performance art. But they were also a little punk rock band. They had a couple catchy tunes.
No, their songs didn't make me want to kill myself, which is good. But they weren't just like we are. They weren't Gwar saying we are performance. Where you're going to see blood.
They tricked you a little bit. You thought you were going to see like a ska kind of punky show because there was a horn or two,
and then they just bust out with this weird shit. So, and if you didn't know that's what Tree Fort did, you just didn't know.
So let's set the stage. We are playing with a band called River City High, who we were huge fans of.
Yeah, great.
And it was the first night we were playing with them. So it was the first night we were meeting them. We thought that they were bigger than they were. So we're thinking we're going to play in front of, at least this is where I was coming from. Like, dude, we're playing with River City High.
And showing our naivete as artists at this point, not knowing how things really work.
Exactly. We're thinking like, yo, because we would see them open up for big bands.
Yeah.
So when they came to Cali, they're playing in front of Newfound Glory or Alkaline Trio, and but they're on their own. They're in this small town, and nobody's at this show. And we're just stunned that, like, my God, this is River City High. I'm thinking there's going to be at least 150 people there.
Well, I mean, Katie Naked Lady was at that show.
Yes, our friend Katie Naked Lady, who was not a naked lady, but she just got the weirdest nickname.
She has a nickname.
So the opening act, the local band, is Tree Fort, and one of the guys in the band booked the club. And hey, I want to say this out of the gate. Super cool dudes.
Yeah.
Friendly to us,
really
inviting
nice
to us, ran an old school, legitimate punk rock ethics, all ages club. Definitely. They were not in it for the bucks. This is a long time ago. It's like 2002, 3, something like that.
Maybe a little later, but
no. It was definitely...
It was before Warped Tour, so I guess it must have been
2003. I feel like it was 2003.
That's fair.
Okay. So this band comes out, and you have to understand, the most important thing about this is there's no one in this club. It's a tiny little room,
there's 20
strip mall. Not less. 10 people. And some of them are us
band members
and River City High, This band plays a set, and during the set, it's really quick. It's like a 15-minute set.
Yeah, short.
And at the end of the set, they form, I want to say, a pyramid, kind of.
I'm fuzzy on the details leading up to what we're talking about.
But so there's one guy who's basically half naked. He's basically like in his fucking undies, right?
It's Jones.
Yeah, and they're doing like drum roll fills or whatever, and it's just fast and furious and bizarre, and they do like a little pyramid, and he gets on the top of it, and it's a very rough-looking, ugly pyramid. But at this point, and stop me if I'm wrong, Dan, but he kind of pulls the front of his pants down.
Yep.
So his dick's out. First and foremost, there's 5 people in this club, and there's a guy at the top of a pyramid who has now pulled out his dick.
With his dick out.
And then he takes
performing
a butter knife.
Yeah, it was like a table knife. Not a sharp knife.
And starts sawing his penis.
Sawing his dick off.
Right? Like, he's sawing his penis with a butter knife.
Yes, that's correct.
And it's getting red, but there's no blood. So it's not
it wasn't actually hurting him.
He's not taking but
he's not auditioning for cock choppers.
Pulling his penis down and fucking furiously cutting it while all this music's playing. And he's like screaming, sawing his balls, but his knees are on the shoulders of 2 different dudes in a pyramid. And he then, like, almost as if he was angry that he has not cut his dick off, throws the butter knife. Right?
Yes.
Right?
This is also what I remember.
Takes a lighter. I don't know where the lighter is. Okay, I don't know where this lighter is. He takes a lighter and he turns on the lighter and lights his fucking pubic hair on fire.
That
big happened. Old bush, right?
Of course, you were staring right at it.
Lights it, and I think he may have maybe preemptively lighter fluid it for effect because
possible. It fucking went up. Redefined fire crotch.
Yes. Now imagine this. It is 6 guys from Army of Freshmen, 3 guys from River City High, 3 kids that are in this club staring at a band
in a small suburb outside of Atlanta in Georgia,
in the Bible Belt. And there is a pyramid of 2-3 dudes, and there's a dude on top of it who has pulled his dick out, tried to cut it off, then has now lit his pubic hair on fire. Flame. We are flabbergasted isn't the right word. I'm thinking like this fucking club is gonna burn to the ground. Like this is how I'm gonna die. This is gonna be some great white shit. I'm gonna die in an empty club with a guy who just tried it. Like, so fire is up, and at this point the pyramid, I remember, falls apart, kind of tumbles. Boom! He hits the ground. He basically slap beats his bush and his penis.
Puts the fire out
to put the fire out. And then he just runs out the side door.
Yep.
Silence. And there are no bouncers. There's no club owners. Yeah. They run this club. And you just hear, woo! And then you just hear somebody in the distance who has gone off into history and will never be named. We'll never know who this is.
Guy's name.
But somebody in the distance, it's probably one of the River City High guys, after silence, just goes, what the fuck? But it wasn't while it was happening. It was like
way after.
He needed a minute. And we're stunned. It's all we're talking about. We can't believe what we've just seen. And everyone's performance is affected.
Completely.
We play, and in between every song, we're almost questioning the 4 or 5 people who are like, because the band kind of disappeared. We didn't see anybody else from Treefort after that. We're like, yo, was anybody here for the opening act? Did anybody see that guy light his balls on fire?
I mean, it still smells like burnt hair in here. You can smell it.
Yeah, it's when we are playing in a club, breathing in burnt pubes.
That's very true.
And River City High plays, and they just look scared. I mean, I was at least talking about it.
I've never seen those guys.
Those guys just kind of looked at the ground like, and you kind of have to question what you're doing with your life, you know, because you're just in an empty strip mall, and you've just seen a man attempt to castrate himself and then light his pubes on fire in the name of rock and roll, I suppose. And that forever is the strangest show I've ever seen.
And we have seen some strange shit.
Yeah.
Hands down. The weirdest.
Yeah. We've only touched the iceberg, but this is the pinnacle.
Oh God. Yes. Very much so.
The strangest show I've ever seen.
I have never before or after seen a man attempt to cut and burn his cock off.
Totally. That was it. Sometimes in this life you see something and know, well, I'll never see that again.
Yeah. I mean, you might see some dude get hit by a bus. Maybe you see the fucking Looney Tunes piano fall on somebody and you're like, holy shit, you're changed forever. We saw a front man of a band trying to cut his cock off.
He wanted to cut that cock off. He was like, just furiously cutting the thing. And then again, he lit the pubes and they went up.
Yeah. It turns out they're flammable.
So that's it. Treefort at Swayze's in Georgia.
In Kennesaw,
Georgia. The strangest show I've ever seen. And I don't think I'll ever see anything stranger.
God, I hope not.
Yeah, and I hope, dear listener, you enjoyed that story.
I did see.
This is pre-YouTube. There's no footage of this.
This is way before
you just
YouTube.
had to memorize what you saw in your head.
I did recently see the yard. I want to say the Yardbirds. It's not the Yardbirds. The tree something yards.
The tree yards, the Yardbirds.
Let me look this up because it was a weird show. It was nowhere weird.
Okay.
Anywhere close to this weird.
And that's the all-time craziest. And this has been a bit of a crazy episode. We bounced around. We actually did have a topic in mind, but
we didn't even get to it.
I know I'm kind of avoiding it a little bit. Honestly,
the Tune Yards. That's who I was trying to think of.
The Tune Yards. I don't know the Tune Yards.
They're fucking out there. Not like in a crazy weird way. The music is weird. And it's very interesting. But I've seen some weird shit at the Hollywood Bowl. Nowhere near as weird as Treefort in Kennesaw, Georgia at Swayze's.
I will tell you, if Treefort ever plays the Hollywood Bowl, I'm not missing it.
Not for a fucking anything in the
know
world.
he's on fire.
He's gonna turn into Burning Man. He will be Burning Man.
He's gonna be like that monk that went up that's on the cover of the Rage record, oh yeah. So hey, there's a lot of lessons in tonight's podcast, and I think the most important lesson is
why did you listen this long is the most important one.
And it's not easy to cut your cock off with a butter knife.
Truth be told, I'm gonna take your word on that. I haven't tried it.
You gotta want it. He wasn't playing around.
He just didn't want it bad enough. I mean, you really
I'm
have
glad
to
you're here, because if I need, when I tell that story to people think I'm bullshitting.
Because how could you possibly?
I got a reputation as an exaggerator, and they're like, dude, that's a Chris J story. And I'm like, no, it's not. This happened.
This one is not.
Yeah, it's real. It's real, like this podcast.
Take that as you will.
Yeah, take it as you will. But hey, well, the good thing about tonight, Dan, is we did get to experiment with our new technology.
We did.
And the super cool thing is,
it's still working.
I got a tweet from @Sarah_Marie, who is a very good friend, and she says, "Oh my God, Tree Fort, that band was really what the fuck." So it works.
Somebody's watching. Hi, Sarah.
It freaking works. That's awesome. At the very least, Sarah, I hope you got to enjoy that story, because there was some visual and theatrics as we told it. But hey, so we do have this new system working, and in future, we're going to attempt to give you more of a lead. We did it tonight on a couple-minute notice because we weren't sure it was going to work.
On purpose.
We didn't want people to get pissed off at us. But from now on, we'll definitely give you heads up when we're doing it. Of course, this will air per usual. Dan, where can people listen to this podcast?
You can get it on your podcatcher of choice. Anyone will do. You can subscribe in iTunes. You can go to Stitcher. You can go to, well, if you have a podcatcher, just search for Fresh Talk, and you'll probably find it. You can also stream it from the website. The links are all on the website. And yeah, we're out there.
For a title of this episode, do you like Let the Pubies Burn? What about the smell of burnt pubic hair? Should we go with an extreme title?
I mean, that's a long payoff. They're going to have to wait a long damn time.
Breathing in the strangest show of all time. Because we were kind of jumping a little.
We were all over the place.
Fun talk, though, no doubt about it.
Cock choppers just resonates.
Cock choppers. Cock choppers. That sounds like something that would be like on Nat Geo, like a reality show. Cock choppers, you know what I mean?
We make choppers into cocks.
A bunch of cocks making choppers. Chopper cocks. Chopper cocks.
They have that show already.
Cool. Well, hey, this is our second episode. Thanks for bearing with us. We are working out the kinks.
Episode 81.
Working out the kinks. Last week, we proved that we could do it. Yeah. And this week, we proved that we now have the technology to watch it live if you get the advance, but nothing's going to change. It'll still come up on iTunes. Yep. Where can people find us, Dan? Where can they spread the word? Where are the old episodes? What give us the background?
If you go to freshtalkpodcast.com, links are there to everything, to our social media. You can follow us at Fresh Talk Pod on Twitter, Fresh Talk Podcast on Facebook, Fresh Talk Podcast on Google+, and Twitter kind of covers the rest of it. So that covers Periscope, Fresh Talk Pod on Meerkat.
We're all over
the place. Meerkat. Yeah, so follow, like, and subscribe on everything. We try and keep you up to date.
Cool. And I'm excited to get to the point, hopefully, if we do have a little lead where we have some people watching, it will be fun to start taking questions on Twitter and start talking about stuff. That's going to be a really cool aspect. Again, more guests coming. Skype's getting set up. The podcast is only improving. We're in our test stages, but thank you very much for sticking with us. Test stages of 2.0.
Yeah.
And it's always a pleasure being here, Dan, talking, hanging out. Parents Barrage.
Welcome back to the Barrage.
Yeah, it's nice to have one of those random episodes.
Yeah, totally. It's going to happen.
Stuff. But next week, I think we're going to get into what we were hoping to talk about tonight, which is Roddy Piper. Yeah. The loss of Hot Rod Roddy Piper. Strangely enough, as weird as this sounds to even say, I became friends with Roddy a little bit. So it was a weird experience for me, his passing. Again, not close friends by any means. I hate when people start to act like they're best friends with somebody just because they're dead. But I do have some pretty interesting stories, and it's a little heartfelt. So just wasn't ready to launch into it tonight. Kind of sad.
Had to talk Tree Fort instead.
Yeah. Tree Fort just sounded lighter.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Like the lighter he used to light his pubes on fire, that kind of lighter.
I kind of blocked that out. There's a place where that is stored.
Lives somewhere.
And every once in a while it comes out. But next week we'll be talking about Hot Rod Roddy. So if you have any questions about Roddy or want any input you want to put or about his career or any of that kind of stuff, hit us up.
Yeah.
Touch base. Let us know. You can hit me at Army of Freshmen. Dan, where can they find you?
I'm at SpoonerDX pretty much everywhere.
Where can they find the podcast? On Twitter?
At Fresh Talk Pod.
You can hit us up there. throw some stuff out. We'd love to share some stories about Roddy, some of memories, favorite matches, all that stuff.
And we do monitor the hashtag Fresh Talk, so if you tag any tweets with that, we'll also find it that way.
Yeah, we're tech now, man.
We're Mr. Robot.
All right, I'm gonna try and look at the camera one last time to see if I can do the Rambo. Love it. It's just a perfect second.
All I ever see when you do that is Weird Al.
Oh yeah, he does it so good.
he's
God, Weird Al UHF.
Oh, he's the best.
Let's just talk about that some night.
All right.
That should be one of our goals. We should have a bucket list.
Can we do a whole show on
Weird Al?
On
we
UHF?
We can do a whole show on Weird Al.
Oh, hands down. But
a bucket list would be to have him on.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
We should make a bucket list.
We got some connections.
Yeah. We can make that happen.
We'll see. Got to figure out the Skype shit first.
Yeah, totally. We're not really ready to do that yet. Yeah.
Small potatoes.
Small potatoes. All right, folks. Well, with that said, we're still doing Cue the Bossa Nova.
Cue the cock chopper Bossa Nova.
Yeah, the cock chopper Bossa Nova. Cue it. Oh, so we could still be on right now, right?
We are still on right now. Hello? Are you still watching?